You're listening to The Paul Higgins Show, where ambitious tech consultants come to unlock their potential. After 18 years as a global leader, I launched several businesses, culminating in a successful exit. I'm sharing what I learned, plus what's working now from mentoring tech consultants. You will hear leaders within our industry to help you build a business you love that allows you to do what you want. If you are looking for immediate cash flow wins to fuel your growth, go to our free ebook at paulhigginsmentoring.com/roadmap. Imagine you've got a client that's looking to optimize the CRM that you've either installed or you've come in off the back of someone else, and they really want to get more clients, but you have a look at it and you find that their data is, well, let's put it nicely, very messy. Hello, I'm Paul and welcome to the Paul Higgins Show. It's episode 580. And in today's podcast, I'm very excited to introduce you to Patrick Spychalski. He's from the Kiln, and Patrick will give you lots and lots of value today, but really three key reasons why you should continue to listen. One is that he talks about the role that clay.com can play in improving data enrichment, and also how it can sort of be the Swiss Army knife of getting better leads for not just you, but also your clients. The second is a case study from a company that you're going to know very well, or certainly an individual that's built now a 2,000 person business. So that's a brilliant case study, and it will relate directly to what you do. And then the third thing is secrets of growing a YouTube channel, which Patrick has done very well for clay.com. So Patrick is the co-founder of The Kiln, an agency that uses tools like Clay to help automate outbound and inbound and RevOps processes in the mid-market and enterprise business space. He's been working for Clay since before they had customers, and he has grown the Kiln to a team of 10 people now that are Clay experts that help companies get the most out of the tool. He's a fantastic guy. He gives you brilliant insights. And what I'll do now is hand you over to Patrick and from thekiln.com. And also don't forget to watch it on YouTube. Patrick, like I said, is brilliant at it, and you can go watch him on our channel, which is the Paul Higgins Mentoring YouTube channel. Now over to Patrick. Great to have you here, Patrick.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, well, I first came across you through YouTube. I sort of started going down a bit of a rabbit hole on clay.com, and you were everywhere. Thanks for helping me understand Clay. And today we'll talk about Clay, but we'll also talk more broadly about outbound. I know you got some fantastic examples. But why don't we start with who your ideal client is, and then we can talk about some of the pain points you help solve for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So our ideal client has shifted quite a bit as of recent, but we've been working a lot more in the mid-market to enterprise sector. Usually SaaS companies or agencies are the type of people we generally work with. And we provide one of three services, or I guess three of three services. The first one would be outbound enablement as well as outbound automation. Second one would be inbound enablement and automation. And the third one would be more kind of like RevOps, Salesforce data cleaning, Salesforce white space filling services as well. So that's kind of the three different things we provide.
Gotcha. And you sort of before we went live, you were saying that your mix has sort of changed certainly between one and two, like what more inbound and now you're going more outbound. Is that right?
Vice versa, actually. So yeah, we've started mostly with outbound, and I think that was just due to what Clay was known for at the time. That's the main tool we use is a tool called Clay. And when it first kind of came onto the market, the main use case that people would highlight was outbound. And we kind of just followed suit with the market and did a lot of outbound based servicing. But as the product has progressed and as its position in the market's progressed, it's been a lot more inbound based, a lot of RevOps use cases. So we've seen a pretty massive shift with regards to those two as well. So I'd say it used to be more like 80% outbound that we would do, and the rest of it would kind of fall at the latter 20. And it's now been more like 50-50. So clients don't even really want outbound from us. They want other sort of workflow automations in Clay.
Gotcha. I know that we had Yash from Clay on the podcast. So here's episode 571 if you want to go back and hear his perspective of Clay. But I'd love to get sort of your perspective of how you came into Clay and, you know, why you've continued to build an agency around it.
Yash will do a much better job describing the tool than I will, but I'll definitely tell you my experience with it. I kind of came into Clay by just random chance. So one of my close friends and former roommates, Matt Mayali, was the head of marketing at Clay, and I just knew him very well. And I was running a marketing agency when we were living together. And one day he was pretty much just like, hey, could definitely use some help on the marketing side here. He was working on a lot of high level stuff, but there was kind of some like SEO, more organic stuff that he needed help with. So I was like, okay, sounds good. I'll go ahead and help you out. And I joined the Clay team as like a fractional marketing help. And as I started using the tool, I realized that it was unlike anything I'd ever seen in my life. And I was shocked because at the time they were quite small, didn't have many customers, and they were kind of just like trying to find product market fit. And I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. How is nobody else using this? I started making content for them. My role at Clay kind of shifted into more social media based things. So I was running their YouTube, I was running their LinkedIn. Eventually, I had people reach out to me from the YouTube and LinkedIn videos and saying, I could definitely use some help with Clay. Was there any chance you'd be down to help me out? And after a few of those asks, I decided I should probably pivot into doing this. And yeah, so here we are. But yeah, Clay as a tool from a high level is an outbound, inbound, RevOps, or maybe from a high level, just workflow automation tool. There's so much that can be done with it. It's kind of like trying to describe Zapier, if people are familiar with that tool. But it's like it's kind of amorphous. There's not one specific use case it applies to, but there's so much that can be done with it. Our specialty is really just trying to wrangle it for whatever use case our clients need.
Yeah, and I sort of best describe as, the old Swiss Army knife sort of example. Or another one that Yash and I spoke about was the glue. And if you think of, because someone yesterday asked me, well, what is this, Clay? I hear a lot about it, but I, still don't quite understand it. And I said, well, you got to go watch Patrick on YouTube because he'll help you understand it quicker than me. But I sort of looked at, if you've got all the public data that's out there, there's so much public data on so many different tools, and then you've got your own data. What Clay is I think the bridge between those two, and actually then doing your go to market activity. So it helps make that data turn into more better targeted information to get to your end client. So that's the way that I sort of look at it in my layman's terms. Given all of your experience with Clay, tell me where I've got that right and where I could improve it.
No, you've pretty much got it right on. I would say the way I try to describe it to people is Clay has a few different functions. The first one is data finding / enrichment. Clay, one of its superpowers is you can aggregate essentially every data provider in existence into one tool, which of course provides far higher data accuracy and data coverage for, of course, like accounts, prospects, or whatever you're trying to find data on. The second thing you can do is a lot of really great and robust data segmentation and augmentation. For example, something that our clients constantly have is maybe like a location field in Salesforce has an entire address in it. It's really good at being able to programmatically separate city, state, country, using stuff like that, just using AI. So it's really good at that. And it's also great at connecting to external tools and syncing with those tools. You can think HubSpot and Salesforce are two very obvious ones that can connect to the HubSpot and Salesforce really well. And it can essentially import and export data very quickly. It's almost a data intermediary between the two. Yeah, you can update things really quickly. So it's really great at those three things for the most part. I would say that it's three strong suits.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. I suppose it'd be great to take us through a couple of examples of how you used it, because one of the things I often talk about on this podcast is we talk about the hole, not the drill, right? So
Yeah.
some of the hard things with Clay is that you spend so much time talking about Clay that you don't really get to, well, how's it really got an outcome for a client? And I know that one of the examples is probably someone that you've never heard of before. Give us a little bit of an insight as to what the situation was, what their problem was, and then what you went and did and the result.
Yeah, for sure. I started working with probably 6, 7 months ago, and one of their core problems was that their Salesforce, while it had a ton of valuable data, a lot of it was either missing. So certain fields would be missing, like address, company, title. Data would be outdated. So stuff that was in their Salesforce or HubSpot maybe uploaded like a year ago, and it's no longer relevant. So it'd be outdated. Or there was just data that was not being, like, say, segmented correctly. So again, like the location field example would be a great example of this. And so they quickly realized that Clay was a really great way to solve these problems for them. But there's a lot of nuance to building out a workflow in Clay. It's not really as simple as you just plug your Salesforce in and it just runs amok like an agent or something. Like you need to set it up. That's kind of where we came into play, and we set up a lot of systems that were able to fill in the blank spaces in their Salesforce, get old data, make sure it was actually up to date, and then of course if it wasn't, update it, and then get all of that kind of fragmented, unnormalized, and unorganized data, kind of put it where it needed to be. So that was a use case for them specifically, and That would probably fall under a lot of like the RevOps slash Salesforce use cases that I was talking about before.
Yeah, great. And like you said, this is, it's Salesforce, it's HubSpot, but it can be other platforms as well. So, it's that's the brilliant thing. It sort of taps into anything you're using. And, for the cleaning of the data, etc., how much was this for their marketing list versus how much was for, outbound prospecting?
Believe they had a few different organizations that were using this Salesforce database that we created, but the main ones were sales and marketing. So for those who don't really know much about, they are a marketing agency from a high level. Like they're a social media marketing agency. So they do, but they have a bunch of other wings. For example, they have a recruiting wing. They have the actual marketing agency wing. Of course, have an outbound wing. And so I was talking to, when we were working with them, there were several different sectors of the company that we would engage with, and the Salesforce was kind of shared by all of those. And we essentially did this with like maybe not all, but at least close to all their entire database. It ended up being applied, of course, to several different parts of the business.
Yeah, brilliant. And, it is, I even know for myself, if I look at, going to my CRM, I don't use Salesforce or HubSpot. I use something that's a legacy, which is Copper CRM. But when I look at that, yeah, if someone's changed job titles or someone's changed companies, or what often I get in my world is someone changes from corporate to running their own business or vice versa. And, you go in there and the is not accurate. So I suppose if that can be refreshed, which this means that we always talk about, marketing to the person or personalized marketing, I think that, helps enormously. So that's a great example. You had another example with a startup. So take us through once again the situation, what you did and the outcome of that.
Yeah, for sure. So this was more of an outbound use case than anything else. And so we had a Salesforce tool. They were essentially like an AI Salesforce manager. I think the goal of it was to kind of take over some of the more menial, tedious tasks that a Salesforce manager would usually have, was like the value prop of their tool. And they came to us because they were in the pretty early stages of their business. This was they're definitely not like they're usually in like the mid-market enterprise sector that we usually work with. And they were looking to get some traction. The thought that we had was there's a really great value prop here, but we have to provide some personalization in the outbound that we're sending to their prospect. We didn't want to send like a templated email, which of course is really easy to do, but you send millions of them, you maybe get a few responses. Deliverability is terrible. I'm sure everybody's gotten an email like that that's just garbage, and you're like, well, I'm not even going to read this. But we also didn't want to spend all the time just manually outreaching to every one of the people in their ICP. And Clay is a really great combination of the two, where you can send high scaled and personalized outbound. We had a few different campaigns we built out for them, but the one that did particularly well was actually during the Dreamforce conference. I'm sure most people, listening to this are pretty familiar with it. They pretty much were planning on attending the Dreamforce conference, and they're like, hey, we want to kind of maximize our time there, but we really don't know how to do that. And we decided, well, how about we try to find everybody who's attending Dreamforce that's in your ICP and reach out to them, kind of pitching your services and ideally getting a meeting with them while you're at the conference. And within 2 days or 3 days, we got them like 30 positive replies from the emails we created in Clay. We're all very personalized, saying, hey, it was pretty much what we did from on the back end. We scraped LinkedIn for every post that mentions Dreamforce. We scraped every Dreamforce post. We then used AI to write a first line saying, hey, I saw your post about X, usually mentioning Dreamforce in some point in the post, saying, hey, you're going to be there. We'll have to meet. Yeah, they got like 30 positive responses. They couldn't even actually meet with all the people in the short period of time that they were there. And I think they ended up closing like 3 deals that ended up aggregating to like more than 100 in closed deals. It ended up being a very fruitful campaign for them, and it really couldn't have been done without Clay. I mean, all the scraping, all the enrichment, all the personalization to scale was really what allowed it to happen.
When I spoke to Yash, episode 571, it was very much around the next evolution. The way I look at this is, we started with data, then we went to LinkedIn has, been massively helpful for outbound. Then we went, specific tools. It was sort of, were the next step. And then I think Clay sort of the next evolution of, and you're sort of sitting here thinking, well, hey, this may not specifically work for my company. I'm too small for this. That's right, but it's your clients, right? Like, how many times haven't you got success with a campaign or a project because data's been so poor, or the targeting of how they target the information isn't good? So if you think of you being, yes, you provide the Salesforce CRM as an example, or Salesforce Cloud, yes, but it's actually the result that you want to get for someone. And Clay and, working with someone like Patrick can help them get a much better result with the tool you put in. Or the legacy information that they've got that is not enriched, you know. So I think that's where this may not help you specifically in your business, but it definitely can help your clients. And ultimately, you know, that's what makes you more money. You talked briefly before with Clay and how you were doing their YouTube. And as I said, that's how I found you. I think you've been doing a brilliant job. What I'd love from you, Patrick, is just some tips on how you got started and how that could apply to someone that's in this tech consulting world that needs to do it and have it.
Yeah, for sure. When I started doing Clay's YouTube, I actually had little to no experience in YouTube itself. Genuinely had little to no idea as to what I was doing. And I will say, after a few iterations of creating videos, it was pretty easy to pick up on generally what worked. The first piece of advice I'd have is just start making stuff. It doesn't have to be perfect. I think a lot of people hit that blocker when they think about doing YouTube, where they tell themselves like, well, I've got to get all this fancy equipment and I've got to get somebody to edit all the videos. And like, they just have this huge laundry list of things that prevent them from just starting. And I found that just creating like Loom videos was getting views and comments and engagements. And it was just me sitting there, like walking through a Clay table with a free software. The first thing I'd say is just getting started. The second thing that I think really took things to the next level was focusing on the attributes of a YouTube video, specifically on the YouTube platform that makes a video success. Things like the thumbnail are really important. Things like the title are really important. Making sure the entire thing is SEO optimized for the specific keyword you're trying to rank in. And of course, getting people to stick. So the number one metric in YouTube, I learned eventually, is retention. People actually watching your video all the way. There's some part of that that just has to be like, make your video good. If your video is good, people will stick. But it also means the beginning of your video is super important. The hook, the thing that you're going to tell people you're about to do, is vastly important to retention. And so making sure your hook is good as well. The order of operations in which we made the Clay YouTube incrementally better, it started with just making Loom videos. From there, I started putting thumbnails on the videos, and then I started optimizing for better titles. And then we eventually ended up hiring another agency to help us with editing and just getting like the general hook down. So when people start watching the video, they stick. And I would say we had like 2 or 3 videos pre-agency when we hired that, before we hired them, that did really well. And then once we hired them, they were able to kind of get those ideas and take them to the next. I would recommend, again, just trying things until you find something that generally works, and then focus on making the videos better as a whole.
Yeah, great. And are there any particular tools that you're using, like for the, you know, keyword research or anything like that?
I know there's a Chrome extension that's completely escaping my mind right now that I was using, where if you can pretty much, I think it's called like TubeBuddy or something. I'm
Yes,
pretty sure
yes.
that's correct.
Yeah.
And when you go on a YouTube video, it tells you what the SEO score for the video is and what words it's ranking in. And you can do it for your own videos, but I thought it was also helpful just as I watched YouTube naturally to see what they were doing right, what they were doing wrong, what things were most important. Because you would see that some of the videos that had 5, 6, 7 million views on them that I was watching actually weren't optimized for SEO, but they were just really good videos, and they were super
Yes.
raw, they were super unedited, and it makes you realize that the true metric for growing your channel is really just making good content that people are interested in. Like, just make something that adds value. I mean, if you look at the wide range of videos that do well, you'll realize there's no like completely omniscient pattern.
No.
It changes all the time. So just
Yeah,
make good
yeah.
stuff.
Brilliant. And as far as the hook, like, are you using AI to help with that, or are you writing it all independently? Like, how's that sort of evolved?
Yeah, so in the beginning, when I was writing hooks, I would just go to more popular videos than mine in the same space and see how they would kind of word their videos. And then eventually, when we hired the agency, they helped out with writing them as well. But it's pretty straightforward. I mean, they're usually, the idea with the hook is the first 2 sentences you say are something that are really captivating and exciting and even maybe a little clickbaity. And then
Yes.
after that, you go into what you're going to be covering in the video, make sure that everybody's on the same page, and then immediately get started. This is something that, yeah, obviously one of the biggest YouTubers in the world, Mr. Beast, I would watch all of his videos on how to make good YouTube videos. And he would always say, like, just cut to the chase, no fluff. You got to just immediately go from one point to the next, not a long transition period, just keep people's attention. That's how to get people to stick. And I think it's a great point.
Yeah, 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 brilliant. Well, I know from a survey of one, you know, my habits of watching, whether it's paid or commercial TV, are basically zero now. Like, I've got, you know, certainly down the AI hole. I sort of, you know, sit at night and just watch. know, YouTube after YouTube in the AI space. And I'm just amazed, especially like, I don't know if you've done much with Notepad LM, and, there's just some amazing things that I've always wanted as, I'm old enough to remember when, pre-internet. Now, yes, the internet and the web's brilliant, but God, these AI tools are brilliant. And is there anything in particular that you're using from an AI perspective that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, with regards to actual video editing and sequencing in YouTube, we have the agency do that for the most part, so I'm not sure what they're using. But I will say I've been seeing a ton of awesome AI use cases on YouTube. Like it truly is like the dawn of a new YouTube, I think. Like for example, I recently watched it was kind of like a mini doc on YouTube, and the entire thing had images that were generated by AI walking through the story. Instead of having to have actors go through and do like a scene, they had like all of these really detailed images that they would just kind of slideshow through walking through the story. And I was like, this is pretty incredible because it's so low effort, but also so high quality and like valuable. And I didn't find it to be intrusive. I didn't find it to be irrelevant. Like I was like, this is
Yes.
a really well-made video with just
Yes.
like AI generated images that we're kind of sequencing through. And I'm sure it's only a matter of time, I would say, within at least the next year, probably, where videos are going to end up being that good. And you can just have like AI actors going through and doing stuff on YouTube. So if you're starting a YouTube channel now, there's a lot of exciting stuff you can do that will get you miles ahead of everybody else.
Absolutely. And a lot easier. Like you said, you don't have to do all the heavy lifting. Slight side shooters, I'm doing a webinar this week. Oh, sorry, when this goes live, it's already gone, but you'll probably find it on my YouTube channel. But, I had my deck out of Google Slides, and then I used Gamma, so gamma.app, and
Yeah.
just put it into that. And it was like mind blown. Like even
Yeah.
my wife, who's normally pretty critical about my design, is like, oh, wow, that looks sensational. And it
Yeah.
took like 2 minutes just to upload it and change it. It's absolutely
Yeah, it's
incredible.
impressive. I've used Gamma before actually for a few slide decks I've created, and it is so wild. You'll just give it like a few prompts and a few pieces of information, and it'll just create you this beautiful slideshow. So it's just unreal the amount of cool AI tools that are coming out. I think a great practice for anybody who wants to learn more about those tools is for every task you're doing, just go try to see if a tool can do it.
Yeah.
Like just take that extra step and do a little bit of research because you'll end up expanding your mind to the amount of insane tools there are out there.
Yes, spot on. And if we bring it back to the topic with just reminder that you're listening to Patrick Spychalski from its episode 580, is that I think that's what some of these AI tools are doing is effectively what Clay is doing, I think, to the data enrichment and also the outbound process. And I think that's where, and like you said, it's not the easiest of tools. It can learn it yourself. And certainly you got a lot of videos on YouTube, Clay's channel to do that. But I think that's where you get someone like Patrick from the kiln.com, and all the links will be in the show notes, to sort of help with that journey. And especially if you've got a client, you can basically be Patrick into to partner to help that client. Crazy using like the days of just using Sales Navigator or whatever, I think are well and truly gone. You need to take the leap, and this is the leap. Just last question before we go into our rapid fire. For you running the agency, what have been some of the things, and it's 12 months in, but what have been some of the things that have been hardest for you in scaling this agency?
I think this can probably be related to by most agency owners, but for us, the main problem, or I guess the main thing that we're working every day to solve, is how do we scale the level of service we provided for the clients we have now to more, of course. Like
Yes.
the goal is to scale an agency. We are at 10 people now, which we've only been around for about 12 months now. So it was been a pretty quick scaling process. But the whole problem we face is I know I can do a good job for a client. At least I think I can, and the feedback has said the same thing. My co-founder, I feel the same way. But how do we get those systems and those ideas and create kind of like a scalable format for the people that we're hiring to get them on the same page? And so when I have them working on clients, I know that the quality will be the same or similar to what we've been providing for them. It's been the hardest thing to solve, I think.
And I think, the brilliant thing is, as AI improves, I think that's going to make it easier and easier. Because I used to always talk about my job when I was, well, even my job today is to help people make it easy as possible for them to be successful. I think if you do that, well, then everything else flows. And I think that's where the use of AI can help. And that's where the use of tools like Clay to help with that data enrichment and getting much better outbound, it just makes it all easier for someone to do a better job. And I think that's, it's all tied, but what a great time to be alive. And it's really exciting. But you can find out more about Patrick at thekiln.com. But what we're going to do is pause for a moment, thank our sponsors, and then we'll come back for the rapid fire. Ever spotted your dream client on LinkedIn only to find yourself bogged down in tedious data transfer at the expense of building that critical relationship? Say goodbye to manual tasks and hello to efficiency with Surfy, S-U-R-F-E. Surfy transforms you from a virtual assistant into a sales pro by seamlessly capturing, syncing, and enriching contacts from LinkedIn into your preferred sales platform, be it Salesforce, HubSpot, Pipedrive, Copper, or even Google Sheets, all in one single click. Imagine reclaiming those precious hours spent on data entry and redirecting them towards nurturing valuable connections and closing deals, which we all love to do. With Surfy, it's not just a dream, it's your new reality. Ready to invest your sales time where it truly matters? Try Surfy today by visiting our resource page at paulhigginsmentoring.com/resources and clicking on Surfy. Elevate your sales game with Surfy because your success starts after the click. Okay, Patrick.
All right.
You ready for the rapid fire?
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
So the first question is, what are some of the daily habits that you do to help drive the growth of the Kiln?
Yeah, first thing is really just focusing. I try to get up, work out immediately when I get up, get in. And then the first thing I do is try to work on any of like the deep work stuff that I have during the day. I think most people just get really tired during the day as it progresses. And so I try to get all the hard stuff knocked out in the morning.
Great. And we talked about YouTube, and that's where you find out about AI. Where else do you go to find out how to better grow your agency?
Twitter. I think Twitter is incredible for AI research. People are always talking about AI. Most of the people in tech are usually on Twitter pretty heavily. And I learn a ton from Twitter.
Great. And using Grok at all?
I am. I've given it a try. It's pretty impressive what it can do. I mean, all the AI models have their own kind of nuances and differences, and I like to explore what, the output generally varies in. So, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Grant you one wish for the Kiln, what would that be?
To be able to scale and maintain the same level of quality that we've had in the past, I think. And obviously have clients that, appreciate our work and provide a ton of value for them.
Yeah, great. The last one is, what do you know now that you wish you had have known 12 months ago when you started the Kiln?
Couple things. I think the first thing is probably how to hire and work with people. I think in your mind, it's so easy to scale an agency, but I think an agency is at the end of the day, a thing about a people problem at the end of the day.
Yes.
Like working with clients, that's a big people problem. Hiring the right people, that's a people problem. And I wish I had more insights onto that before I started, because I probably could have saved myself a lot of tough clients and a lot of rough hires. But I think now our team is really solid. So it's exciting to see that progression.
Brilliant. Well, well done. Like I said, your YouTube content's brilliant. So there'll be a link to go and see that. That's on Clay. And also, reach out, especially around, we talked about Salesforce, HubSpot being sort of the two big ones, but that your clients have got an enrichment opportunity. And also, as you said, it's not just enrichment, but they can also then do outbound as well. Certainly reach out to Patrick. But thanks a lot for entertaining us on YouTube, but coming on and bringing it exclusively to us and you who's watching or listening today. So thanks, Patrick.
Yeah, I appreciate it a ton, Paul. It was a great time.
What a great interview from Patrick. Please reach out to him. The LinkedIn is where you can get him. You can also follow him on YouTube, like I said. We'll have all those links in the show notes, and ask him questions to help you better understand the powerful use of Clay. I think if you're a person that's working or a company that's working with mid and enterprise, Clay has got to be your friend and can really support your activities across the platform that you're using, whether it be Salesforce, HubSpot, or others. Also share it with peers that haven't heard about Clay and the opportunities of Clay, and also a great partner like Patrick to help. And also go and watch Patrick and I on the Paul Higgins Mentoring channel. So don't forget to catch that on YouTube. And I will see you next time on the Paul Higgins Show. Time for action. Let me know what you implemented from the show. I promise to respond. Plus, get the Tech Consultants Roadmap at paulhigginsmentoring.com/roadmap.